republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will start this evening with a motion to approve the agenda as submitted and amended.
I will so move.
Thank you, Chris. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dennis. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now is the moment for public comments on agenda items. Seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting of 6/8/21 and the executive meeting of 7/1/21, the personnel report, retirements, resignations, leaves of absence, etc., the approval of the June 2021 claims 59414 to 59652, the appointment of Daryl Drew to the Fayette County Area Plan Commission, and a donation of a $100 gift card from Walmart to the Spartan Learning Center to be used to purchase landscaping. So I'd like to seek a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we will move on to action items, and we'll start with the personnel report. Mr.
Well,
Harris.
thank you. As we get closer to school, we have a lot larger personnel report than normal. But we are recommending, under certified staff, Brianna Balcom is an elementary teacher, first year. Ola Couch, elementary teacher at Frazee. Matt Davis, student accountability and data coordinator at the Career Center. Michael Davis, teacher of construction trades at the Career Center. Sarah Durrell as speech and language pathologist. Kyle Fisher as math teacher at the Spartan Learning Center with the adult education program. Andrew Fuller, special education teacher at the high school. Erica Huntsman, English teacher at the Spartan Learning Center. Also, and that one looks like we have a little Spartan preschool, but it should be Spartan Learning Center. Delana Richardson, the ABE teacher at Union County. Vanessa Willis, developmental pre-K teacher at Little Spartan Preschool. Then with classified staff, recommending Kylie Bennett as the athletic secretary at the high school. Amy Bronner as a floating educational assistant at Little Spartan Preschool. Sharon Cameron as nutrition bus assistant for Little Spartan. Jasmine Collins as nutrition bus assistant at Little Spartan. Brooke Conley as a floating educational assistant at Little Spartan. Andrea Evans as a floating educational assistant at Little Spartan. Maddie Hofer as special education assistant at the high school. Kayla Noah, developmental pre-K education assistant at Little Spartan. Nikki Noah as nutrition bus assistant at Little Spartan. Tiffany Richardson, a floating educational assistant at Little Spartan. Tammy Sheldon as a bus aide in transportation. Brianna Sorrell as a floating educational assistant at Little Spartan. And Melissa Watson as the health assistant at Connersville Middle School. So I'd recommend all of those hirings.
Can I ask what on all these floating education assistant, can you explain that?
I can
It says
explain a
high
little bit.
school
I can
in
explain a
front of
little
it.
bit, but I will move to the expert who is back here in the corner. So, Mrs. Plum, if you'd like to.
So Head Start has floating education.
Oh, it's Head Start, it's HS.
Yes, Head Start, not high school. Head Start.
And we had written these positions into our grant the previous year, but with COVID, there were not a lot of applicants for these positions, and this time we have plenty. So these positions support the Head Start classrooms as an extra person. We use them as subs, as an ed assistant, if our ed assistant is tied up, just to have those extra hands with.
That's why they're floating?
That's why they float. They
Yep.
can float
That's
between
safe.
different positions in
Okay.
different classrooms.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, seeing the personnel report, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I so move.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second?
Sorry.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, the resolution authorizing the investment of public funds.
Okay, this is an annual process that, what I'm requesting is approval. Like I said, this is all done last year, but what it allows us to do is that it allows us to invest funds, cash reserves at financial institutions throughout the state, not just within the county. So it really gives us a broader scope of where we can invest those funds. Tell you the interest rates, as we all know, are extremely, extremely low, but sometimes this is advantageous to the district to be able to invest at a broader range there.
Okay, I'd like to seek a motion for the resolution authorizing the investment of public funds.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mark. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval for furniture at the Spartan Learning Center.
They actually have 3 different ones here on a
Right.
similar topic. The first one, and all of these I'm coming to the board because they are requests that we're making that are above $25,000. So thus, we need to get board approval prior to issuing these purchase orders. So the first one I have is for basically all of the furnishings within Spartan Learning Center. So it includes the classrooms. Trish Fields is going to have an office in there. We're going to add another conference room. So it's all of the furniture going into those classrooms, and it's for a total of $40,215.63. You can see the itemized part of all of those furnishings.
Okay,
And these are all paid for out of the ESSER funds, the federal grant money too.
Yes.
These next 3, so, well, the next 2, I mean, sorry, 2 of them are the middle school flooring is out of our food service, so sorry about that.
Yep.
all right, well, we'll take care of this first one. I'd like to seek a motion for the approval of the furniture at Spartan Learning Center.
I'll approve that.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we'll go on to the flooring at the middle school.
Okay, the next one on the flooring of the middle school, and Mr. Collins is correct, we've now found approval from the state that we are going to be able to use cafeteria funds, which we need to spend down. So it's a good thing for multiple reasons, but it also doesn't come out of the normal corporation fund. So I'm requesting permission to move forward with the quote from Wholesale Carpets for $68,000 to put in new flooring in the cafeteria, the student section. Just as a little background, I will tell you, as they came in and analyzed that and created the cost, they went over and over about how unlevel and how poor the flooring was, and it's just been a long time. So I think what we're going to see, if this is approved, is a much improved flooring in there, and really going to dress up the public area there, and we're going to be doing some things in the kitchen area too, but I think this is really going to spiff up the middle school cafeteria.
Thank you. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the flooring for the middle school.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion?
Randy, they're leveling that floor, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
a lot of leveling is going to be going into it.
Well, yeah, because it's low, and it's the middle school cafeteria, but anytime the Spartan Bowl is used,
Yes.
the cafeteria is also utilized for a lot of other things, and quite frankly, the floor, when you drop something on the floor and it rolls toward the wall, it's a little embarrassing.
Yeah, and it drops off quite a bit as
Yeah.
you get close to the outside wall
Yeah.
there. But yes, all of that's going to be leveled out, smoothed out, and a new covering put on the top of
What's
it.
the surface of the floor that they're gonna put in, is it a tile?
It's a vinyl type of a tile, but it's not the VCT. How do I describe? I mean, it's a hard type of a plastic, but it's going to be a very hard, very durable surface. Obviously, take care of spills and drops and all of those kind of things that a cafeteria would have. But this particular flooring comes highly recommended from the consultants that Chartwells works with for these types of floors. So they really wanted this particular type of flooring for.
Is it a more type of a plank flooring than the individual tiles?
No, it'll look more dimensional though than just the
Okay.
tile floor, and it's a biscuit beige, so it's not going to be the traditional
Oh, cool.
cafeteria floor, but when you saw the pictures and the designs, it
Yeah.
really bring all that together.
And I think they're bigger squares also.
They're bigger
not the
squares.
Yeah.
tiny squares.
No.
So,
Is that food money gonna cover that whole 68,000?
yes.
Yes.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Now we will go on to the approval for the flooring for the Spartan Learning
Let's
Center.
see. Then the third one here, and this will be out of ESSER 3 funds, but requesting permission to, it's both carpet and tile that we're looking to put in the Spartan Learning Center. The hallways and the classrooms will be carpet, but we're also retiling the, there's five restrooms in the building also, so it's new tile also in the restroom. So that's one that comes highly recommended for its durability and ability to clean and all of those kinds of things. So I'd recommend this quote from Wholesale Carpets for $41,888.34.
Okay, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the flooring at the Spartan Learning Center.
I so move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jeremy. Any discussion? All those in,
I'm just glad we're using local people to do the work.
all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Approval for the increase in adult lunch prices. Randy again.
And this one is being pretty well dictated by the USDA as well as the state food department. And as you will see on there, because of COVID and all of those kind of things, there will be no charge for lunch or breakfast for students K through 12. So there's nothing there, but they are requiring a pretty significant increase actually to the lunch price and the breakfast price for adult staff or guests. And the reason for this is where the prices used to be pretty much, you could take away the commodities and all that. Now they have to figure in the real cost of everything, including what the commodities would cost, into the cost of a lunch or a breakfast. So that's the reason for the price increase. As I said, really coming down from the USDA if we want to continue that. So I would recommend that increase.
So, with the elementary and the secondary, we already had the elementary program in place, did we not, that covered lunches?
It actually all started, we already had the elementary from quite a while back. But then, I don't know, probably about October of last year, that they provided money to, we haven't been charging any students
Okay,
for
I did
a
not know
normal lunch. Now, if they buy a la carte, they still pay for a la carte items, but for just a standard lunch, we haven't been charging students since I think it was about October, November timeframe, and they have continued that on through all of the 2021-22 school year. So we will be doing that throughout.
That's wonderful.
And this adults lunch, still the best deal, still the best deal in town for what you get.
Yes.
But it used to be $3.15, I think now it's $4.60.
Mhm.
Yeah, even at that, that's
Cheap.
very,
It's
and
very cheap.
and frankly, it's pretty good. I've eaten it frequently and it is quite good.
All right, great. I would like to seek a motion then to approve the increase of the adult lunch prices.
Madam President, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Chris. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we'll move on to the approval to advertise for the work to be completed on the Everton Library.
First, I want to present a little bit, and underneath all of your stuff, you have a large paper packet. And I'm going to also ask Tim O'Rourke to come up to the podium, and he's one of the engineers working on this. We've actually got 3 of them, and I'll kind of lay out what you have in front of you. You have a much condensed version, because now the plans are getting, I'm sure if you want the details of the structural steel and the type of concrete and the exact details of the wall, they're getting to that point on there. But what I really printed out for the board are 4 different pictures here, and I'll just walk through them. The first one is a picture of the gymnasium at Everton as it sits right now with 6 goals. Off to the right there, you see some side rooms and storage rooms, but the gym kind of runs from left to right as you look at your page there. If you see the line kind of down the middle, not really, that's where the footer is going to go in, and that's where the new wall will be built in the existing building, or existing gym. So if you flip to the second page, then you can see the whole building with the gym in the middle, and to the left side there as you look at it, you can see where the library is going to be and how it fits into the whole building. And we get a little bit more detail if you go to the third page. Now we focus back in more to just the gym area. So you can see the gym is going to flip 90 degrees and use kind of the right half of, I'll call it the old gym area. The left half there becomes the library, which a large portion of it's a library. There's going to be a small hallway walking through there. On the right-hand side, there will be 2 smaller group rooms that can be used by teachers, group meetings. I'm sure there'll be times that there's a meeting from the office, or guidance counselors will probably move over there. There's a storage room there, and that kind of lays out. And then the fourth page, it's not just building within the structure, it's also going to have a arched ceiling in there within the existing structure. So that's a quick overview, but Tim, like I said, he was crawling around the ceilings and crawling under it and everywhere else today, I think, so he may have a lot more to add there. And
So basically, we took about 1/3 of the existing gym, it's where the wall's gonna go. And we're gonna make a block wall, and it's gonna go all the way up to the bottom of the deck for sound control, fire ratings. So, and then we put a vaulted cathedral ceiling in the library, and we're having a return at 10 feet. So anytime you have a large open room, you want a minimum of a 9-foot ceiling, and preferably 10 foot, because if your ceiling's down low, it makes everybody feel confined. So we're gonna have a vaulted ceiling with a flat 2-foot area along the edges with recessed lighting in it, and recessed lighting on the vaulted, and that ceiling will be drywall, so it'll look really nice in there, be finished. And then, like I said, we had a couple rooms there and a storage room. And it should be fairly quiet with the block wall from the kids in gym when the kids are in the auditorium. But it's probably the biggest gym of any elementary school. When we're done with this, it's going to be about the size of Eastview and some of the other elementary schools. I know I've heard through the rumor mill, and I don't kill the messenger, but I've heard there were some people that weren't very happy about losing gym space. And being an exercise fanatic myself, I can't say I disagree with that, but this, I think, is going to work out pretty well for them as far as that. And it gets rid of the trailers outside, and so all the students will be inside now. So, and there's a tunnel that goes underneath there. You've heard tunnels. Back when Bob Cloyd was in charge, he had us do all the roofs on almost all the schools. And Frazee has tunnels. They're 4 foot square underneath the floor. You think most of the floor is on grade level. Well, in Frazee, there's tunnels down through there. Grandview has them. I don't know about Eastview, but anyway, they use them for passive air intake. So in this gym, there's a 36-inch concrete pipe. You don't see it on this drawing, but on the prints I have. And it feeds, all the air feeds down through that pipe all the way to the east and west wall, and then cools all the classrooms on the east and west side. And the rooms that you see on the first page over there are the mechanical stuff, and the whole area above that is all the air handling units and cooling and heating for the school is what's on a mezzanine, and that's where those units are that feed that concrete pipe that goes down there and feeds all the rooms. So we are going to put some separate units on the roof to heat and cool the library, so it'll be separate, so they can control the environment in there a little better than the rest of the school.
So I'm confused, these things that are labeled locker rooms. There's really, I don't know what those rooms are, but
They used to be utilized.
They used to be locker rooms in the gym, yeah.
Yeah.
now they're storage rooms.
Yeah, that's really ancient,
Actually,
because they
they're-
weren't used 30,
Actually, they're
Let's use it.
probably the PE teacher's office.
Offices.
That's the way it
Well,
was.
One of them has a command control center, it has
Yeah,
all the
and then
cameras.
sometimes the custodial
and- because
server.
You can see all the cameras around the whole
Yeah.
school in one of them. I'd call it the control center.
Um,
But yeah, they were locker rooms originally in 1979 when it was built.
Wow, interesting. So
So
those must be decent, fairly decent? I mean,
it's,
By the pictures, I mean, by the drawings here, they look like they're pretty good size.
They're pretty good size.
yeah.
yeah, because looking at the workroom, and I've been in that workroom many times, and it's a decent room, and the locker room to the, what would that be, to the west of it is quite a bit bigger, so. I'm just, after being an Everton parent all these years, I never knew, I always thought those were just small little storage rooms.
And they are used for storage now because they had to move all the tables and things off there's a trap door that leads to that pipe, so I could get down in there today where that pipe was at. And-
I noticed there's gonna be another door put in also at the further end of
Right.
the library. That's nice, that'll go into that hallway for the fourth and.
Right, you have to have two means of egress.
Oh, okay.
And there will be another one added for the gym space as well.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, one would, oh, yes, right, on this end.
What you're looking at is, on the second page, is what we call a life safety plan. The number one loss of human life in the building is fire, and these are the egress to get out of the center of the building. That's what those lines represent, so that we still maintain building code requirements for egress.
And that room that's labeled library is actually kindergarten classroom, right? On
It
the-
is now, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the original library when we had
Right,
half the
sure.
kindergarten.
So what size footprint will leave the gym be at now after this change?
You mean the overall dimension?
Yeah, roughly.
The length is, I think,
It's like
is,
about 50.
it's about 64 feet long then.
Okay.
It's right at 64, north-south direction. And then it's 20, the library is going to be 26 feet wide, and like I said, it's about a third of that, so it's going to be about 50 foot wide by about 64 foot long.
How high is the ceiling in the,
18 foot high,
in the gym's 18 foot?
yeah.
Okay.
That was one of the things I was able to get today for sure, verify. And then the
I
joist.
wasn't sure if it was high enough to get the second floor into the library, but it doesn't look like it's 18.
That would present problems. for
We
egress.
talked about that early on,
Okay.
and that creates a whole other set of architect and safety issues that,
Egress is.
Egress would be the biggest thing on that,
Right,
yes.
right.
I agree with that, yeah.
So that's why we stayed on the one story.
Tim, will there still be room, once the gym is shrunk a little bit, will there be any seating in there? I realize it's pushed back against the wall, will that seating still be available?
That I don't know, because part of the project, we were letting the school take care of the bleacher part of it. So
we have debated that. No final decision's been there, because right now the bleachers are like along the north
Right.
side of it. Those will be removed, and we've talked to Brian. He's not sure there's a whole lot of advantage to keeping them. If we did do it, it would be like along the dividing wall there, but most likely they're going to be removed. Usually if they do programs or things like that, they have enough folding chairs and those kind of things to bring in. So,
Well, sometimes it's just kind of handy to have some seats that you don't have to bring in, so.
right.
But those bleachers kind of came over on the Mayflower too, they're not in the best of shape, so.
I don't know if there'd be any way to get those, like those bleachers in there are like 5-tiered, something.
They're tall.
They're tall. I don't know if there'd be a way, and this is just for, I mean, it's not for Tim, but maybe for Brian to consider folding 2 or 3. I've been in there for school programs. It's been a long time since we've had a Christmas program, but the evening Christmas programs, the daytime Christmas programs, they always had all the chairs out. There was always plenty of space. And the students sat on the bleachers because it was daytime, so the students got to watch the kids perform. But at night, it was pretty full, bleachers
We will
and
probably,
chairs.
we didn't get to do it last year, but we moved those programs up to the high school.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that eliminates that.
So
Yeah.
Because all the
that's-
buildings struggle with
That'll be
that.
a
Right.
principal discussion again. That takes care of that.
That's right. Gosh, it's been so long since we've done a program.
So there are a few things that we're, on our plans and where we're going right now, we're allowing the school to make decisions on what they
Sure.
want to do. But like the bleachers, We're only utilizing 4 of the 6 backboards. So right now, we've got, it's specified to the contractor to return those 2 backboards to the school. If they want to sell them, they want to put them in another school or keep them as spares. I mean, we're trying to, do what we can with not having every little nut and bolt, accounted for. So the main thing is to get the library built.
Yeah.
And there's some other things that we've written into our specs that allow the school to have ownership of it and do with it what they want to do, and not have to make that decision right now.
And the gym will be plenty big enough to run basketball practice.
Be the same about as Eastview.
And Frazee, Eastview and Frazee and
Grandview's small.
Grandview's small,
If you can do it at Grandview, you can do it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Grandview's is
And
small.
I've done it at Grandview's.
Eastview's the old man's basketball, where you only got to run it down the court a few feet away.
Tim, are we gonna do anything besides just the block between the library? I'm a little concerned about a gym and a library. Are we gonna do anything to soundproof
Well,
besides
we
just
are
the block?
drywalling the inside of the library, and we were insulating the block.
Okay.
We haven't decided yet. I mean, we can do it, we can insulate the block a couple ways. We can either use insulation in it, or we can fill every 4 feet, there's gonna be a reinforcing bar in the block. So that'll be grouted solid. Because you can't do plain masonry anymore. The codes have changed over the years. But the rest of the blocks will be either with insulation or filled with sand to sound deaden.
Okay,
But
good.
But a block has way better sound deadening properties, and that's why all these schools have used it than drywall and, insulation and studs.
Okay.
So
And these will be 12-inch wide blocks too, not the traditional
Right.
A-ride.
we'll have a sound transmission coefficient of about 60, which is really high. So,
I'm old school, I like a quiet library,
yeah.
so I hope we have one. Thanks.
So most likely you'd hear the kids out of the hallway versus the gym.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got a double set of vestibule doors on the one side, so that will keep the south hallway down, but the west hallway, we've got just the one door that exits right from there.
So I'm assuming these doors would be like for safety rated for the newer things for safety.
They'll have panic bars, everything.
Okay.
And we got panic hardware on everything now.
Do we have, what's our time frame on doing all of this?
Well, let me I'll lead to that. I mean, really, the purpose of what we need approval for tonight, ultimately, is I'm asking the board for approval to advertise the project.
Okay,
And so that's gonna be where we wanna end up.
okay.
But what we're looking at in the time frame that we have built is we look to advertise it beginning August, or first time on August the 20th, advertise the second time on August the 27th, looking at a pre-bid meeting on September the 3rd, have a bid date of September the 10th. Then that's on a Friday. Then all of the team will look at it, come back with a recommendation to the board for our September 14th meeting. So we hope that then the board will be ready to award the bid at the September 14th meeting. And then one thing that somewhere got changed back and forth, but the first phase will be really building the foundation. So cut the existing basketball, or cut the tile out, build the foundation, and do that the week of fall break. And that'll be, basically, they're gonna do that work, cover it back up, and then we'll be able to continue things. Then at Christmas, so at Christmas break, starting on December the 23rd, looking to build that block wall up during the 2 weeks of Christmas break. And hopefully then all of that's completed. And then they will be able to continue to work from Christmas until the completion, because they're gonna be self-contained there. I mean, yeah, they're gonna be out in hallways at times, no question about that. But really, they're gonna be able to work separate from the kids and separate from the school. I'm sure there'll be some noise and disruption, but it will be minimal. And the goal right now is that hopefully everything will be completed at the finish of spring break. So when we came back from spring break, we would be in the new library. That's a pretty aggressive timeline, but they think that building wise and all that, from a contractor standpoint, when they're looking at winter work and they don't have to worry about the elements, that's pretty good for a construction company to know they don't have to, it's already enclosed and they're just all working in a.
So it shouldn't be a problem getting bids.
The timing of it.
To get
Yeah, the
good-
timing and what it is, the nature of it. Should be easy to get bids and get competitive bids at that, because of,
Yeah, that's what we're hoping.
And it should be pretty much minimal disruption to the classrooms. Having taught through a renovation that wasn't, if you can keep it self-contained like that, there's gonna be minimal. And the younger kids, as I recall, are on the other side of the building. So,
is there any open items of concern?
I don't think so right now.
Pretty simple.
I mean, Don Miller, a guy I worked with, he's doing the electrical MEP work, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and Dave Instrup's done the architectural work, and I've been taking care of all the structural items, so it's pretty much.
Okay, well, thank you. So what we are looking for a motion tonight is just approval to advertise for the work to be completed in the Everton Library.
I give that motion.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mark. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you for your work on
Thank you,
this.
Tim.
Thanks,
meeting.
Thanks, Tim.
Very welcome for the Everton community. Okay, classified salary changes, Mr. Harris.
So the next one, I sent out a recommendation that I'm recommending this is just a classified staff. Realize all of the certified staff, obviously, we have to go through contract negotiations and timelines and all that. We won't even start that for a while. But Mr. Collins and I, we looked at salaries of classified staff. So anything from bus drivers, custodians, maintenance workers, secretarial, instructional assistants, all of the hourly classified people we have. We compared our salaries with all of the school districts that surround us, as well as we looked at similar sized school districts across the state. And some of them, honestly, you know, I'll just pick on Lebanon. They're about the same size we are, but their proximity to Indianapolis is a different animal. So we looked at other similar ones across the state. We felt that there were a few areas that we really struggled meeting the averages. I will tell you the biggest one that we've had concern about for a long time is our instructional assistants. Currently, the base rate of an instructional assistant is $9.31. And I don't have it right in front of me, but we're looking to increase that from $9.31 to, I believe it's $10.93. And I should have that one in my, that is the biggest pay jump by far. And so what you see there is the recommendation, but in the case of, we've got a couple of individual employees that are an exception, but for the most part, we're looking at a 2-level increase for all, at least a 2-level increase for all employees. And there are those pay groups that we're recommending a little bit more than that. So.
I think it would be helpful, because I asked Scott about this, because this was a little confusing for me. So if we go to the second piece of paper backside, those are those level 9 educational assistants.
Okay.
So currently, people with no degree are getting $9.31, is that correct?
Starting pay,
Yes.
correct.
So you're jumping that first, the first jump is, let me see, where is this?
1093, level J.
Goes all the way to J, but how did you share that with me, like there was a first jump, you collapsed and then you...
We're collapsing the, so if someone, if you don't mind. jumping
Yep,
in here.
go right ahead.
If we hired someone off the street who had no experience in school, they would start at $9.31 an hour. That is not competitive with our region, and we're having a hard time attracting people to these important jobs, and these are important jobs. So we're gonna collapse the scale so that that person would now earn $10.93 an hour. Then, for all of our other employees, they will, let's say somebody was earning $9.85 with 3 years. They'll jump to the $10.93 as well, but then they're going to get a 4-level increase as being here employed last year as an effective employee. So then they will move 4 more steps beyond that. Is it 3 or 4? I'm sorry, I'm going off memory.
Level 9,
level 9 and
Level
then
9
it's
is 3.
Three, I'm sorry, so they would
Collapse
jump
more.
3, so that person would move to 1140, well, 1093, yeah, 1147. So they would still get that yearly increase, so we would still keep a gap between that person who has been here and a brand-new person. So this puts us we're still behind a few districts with this pay amount, but we're getting close.
And the way I describe it is, we're not, for the most part, our instructional assistants, we want to keep them with the region. But we're not competing, for the most part, we aren't competing with surrounding school districts for these people. They live in town. But we are competing against being working at a local small business or working at Walmart or working at,
McDonald's.
McDonald's or whatever. And I describe it that, here's where Walmart pays, let's say, and here's where we have paid, and we're below them, but the benefit of being off during the summers, having the same schedule as my children, and all of those kind of things makes up for that difference. But over time, around us has increased, and then there's this bigger gap that people are going, I really would like to work for the school district, but I can make $3 an hour or $4 an hour or whatever. So this is bumping that gap so that the benefit of being off with kids and the salary increases, we hope that we're going to be able to attract more people back to those positions. So that was really our thought process. It wasn't catch up with everybody else, because the benefit of having a school schedule is that you can stay home with your kids and those kind of things. So
Weekends or nights. A lot of the jobs at Walmart and places, you're working weekends and nights too.
Yeah.
So
We're hoping to make it more attractive.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're doing this, you looked into it, because this was definitely needed, it really was.
Yeah. It was-
So, it's wonderful.
It was embarrassing to walk into McDonald's seeing a sign hiring at $10 an hour and knowing we're paying instructional assistants who are working with our children on a daily basis so much less. And it was a matter of respect for what you do. There's nothing wrong with working at McDonald's, but I thought we needed to be held to a higher level than that.
How does this compare to the media counties next to us?
we are, at any given level, we might be a little higher or a little lower. But it pretty well puts us in line or slightly above most of the surrounding counties. I mean, as we looked at it, there might be something where we're a little bit lower in one particular area, but we feel like across the board, whether we're looking at our custodians or whether we're looking at our instructional assistants or where we're looking at, that we are very competitive, meaning edging towards leading the area. I think probably the one that we might not keep up quite as well, I mean, Richmond just has access to dollars and things that we don't have. But even Richmond is not significantly above us in any of these areas.
With these changes.
Yeah, with these changes, I like where we are. Couple of things. Number one, I think we should put as many of our dollars and resources back into personnel as we can. And this is an area we fell behind a little bit, so we're digging a little deeper into money. This is going to cost a significant amount of money over a period of a year to increase all of these, but we have it in the budget. If you look at, when we get to the fund report, our cash balance is still very healthy and growing. So this is not, we're still in very, very good financial condition, even with the approval of these recommendations.
I have another question here. Where it says we are recommending about employees who are made the same level until such time they're in a schedule again with the highest members of their class. We're recommending this rather than reducing their hourly pay amount. They didn't reduce their hourly pay amount, they just cut their hours.
No, we have right now 2 employees that are significantly above
Okay.
their level where they should be. And honestly, I don't know, one of them, we don't know how it really happened.
Okay.
But in the case of both of those people will remain at their current salary. They're not going to get a bump, but they're still going to be leading their level.
Okay.
But it just keeps them flat there.
And recommending that we move all substitute classified staff to $10 an hour. This would basically be custodial personnel then.
mainly.
Because they don't get substitutes for classroom A.
Unless it's an IEP required.
Yeah, sometimes there's an
Life
IEP.
skills.
Yeah.
And there were about 6 or 7 levels where we had a 925, so it just raises all those to
Okay.
$10 for those. But
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. And now I seek that motion for the classified salary changes.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Mark. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Yeah, okay. Motion carries. All right, alternative school program and curriculum, Ms. Corsaro.
Okay, good evening. This is just kind of an update as to where we are with the Spartan Learning Center. Obviously, you approved quite a few purchase orders earlier, so we're getting to a great place with Spartan Learning Center, and we're very excited as we move into next year. So I just wanted to kind of give you a brief overview of where we are, and then kind of explain to you the curricular side of it. As we stated, I believe in May, when we brought this to the board's approval, we are targeting 2 groups. It's kind of morphed into 3 groups now. We're gonna target at-risk 8th graders that will be freshmen. And because of COVID, we had a lot of 9th graders that we felt really needed an extra boost because they weren't maybe as successful with 9th grade English and 10th grade math. And we really feel, we as being this committee for the Spartan Learning Center, that if kids can be successful in English and math their freshman, sophomore years, there's a less likely chance of them dropping out. So we've decided to target some 10th graders that did not pass any section of ELA and math. So we've kind of scooped a group of 10th graders that will be juniors to try to help them get a little extra support so that we can get them to be, they'll actually be 10th graders, excuse me. To give them a little bit more support so that they can get that English and math requirement under their belt so that they don't keep digging a deeper hole. And then finally, we're going to help those seniors who are under credit, utilize some maybe online credit recovery programs to see if we can get them to graduate on time. So with that, I think the biggest thing that I think the board needs to recognize is they are still going to be Connersville High School students. They are not going to be under a new school number. So therefore, the 2 teachers that we hired on tonight's personnel, Kyle Fisher and Erica Huntsman, they will actually work collaboratively with the high school staff. They will participate in all of their PLCs. They will participate in their department meetings so that they understand that they will be teaching the same curriculum that the board adopted for CHS. Really, the biggest difference is the setting in which these kids are going to be receiving instruction. So that reduction in class size, that wraparound support with mental health, that SEL support, and then just having a little bit smaller size and away from maybe the social aspect of a large high school. So I think the thing that I wanted to stress tonight was that the curriculum is the same curriculum that they would receive if they were going to be attending at CHS. And these teachers are going to work collaboratively with CHS to make sure that they're receiving the same standards, instruction, and assessments. So tonight I just need to know an approval for the legal assurances that the board understands that we'll be using the same curriculum for the Spartan Learning Center as we are for CHS.
But Kim, won't there be, the curriculum is one thing, but how it is delivered is quite a different thing. Because clearly these kids did handle it well in a more traditional sense. So are the instructors going to have some more flexibility as far as how they're going to present this material and evaluate the material?
We're going to go at a much slower pace. We're also going to have a longer period of time that they would be with the teacher versus if they were over in the high school. We'll also have some tutoring sessions available. And then we're also going to have that SEL support. You know, a lot of these kids have a lot of other things that are interfering with their learning that maybe aren't being addressed in a traditional classroom setting. And we feel like if we can help them overcome some of that, we can also help them become academically successful as well. So you're right, it is, even though it's the same curriculum, it's about how you deliver that instruction to kids. And if they weren't successful the first time, putting them right back into the same scenario without making any changes really isn't doing them any good. We need to change and kind of break down some of those barriers as to why they're not being successful. And I think this student center will help us do that, because it'll provide that, both that social emotional support and the academic support, and maybe just take that pressure off of not having to perform in a traditional classroom, which some kids just have a very difficult time with that, with the number of anxiety kids that we service anymore. It's what a lot of kids are
Well, they
dropping
know
out.
enough to know what they don't know and what they perceive that they can't do. And that's really difficult.
Yeah, and it's much easier to be flexible and kind of make some changes in delivery and things with this alternative setting than it is when you have 1,000 kids and you're on a specific bell-to-bell schedule.
Curriculum-wise, there was always a map that we had to follow, and there was always considerable pressure to keep up.
Right.
I think that timing's gonna be interesting, to say the least.
We will
First-
still have curriculum maps, and I think what you're referring to, if I remember, the ETS where we had to be on every 3 weeks, we got a short assessment. We will have short assessments, but they won't be as, maybe as time sensitive as they were
Okay.
when we were doing ETS. I think it's still important to, always assess
Right,
what the
exactly.
kids are getting from your instruction. And I think we will know with these kids, hey, they maybe didn't do so well on this, not because they don't understand it, maybe they just haven't received all of those standards in terms of delivery of instruction, so we can kind of filter some of that out. But yeah, they still will follow a map. We have to make sure that we identify those priority standards for each course and make sure that kids are getting those, so that when they get to the next course, they're prepared for it.
Well, and also so they can pass the standardized tests.
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Right. So tonight, I just need an approval for the Spartan Learning Center to utilize the same adopted curriculum as Connersville High School.
I so move.
I was just gonna ask, just gonna go with that one. Thank you, Ann, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the Head Start paving program, Ms. Flum.
Seeking approval tonight on a paving project using Head Start funds. The north parking lot at Little Spartans Preschool needs a paving makeover in the amount of $32,950. Darrell Drew did get the 3 required quotes that we need for this project, and pending your approval, we will get moving on that. So it's been a long time since that parking lot's been paved.
All right, well, let's get on a motion to approve the Head Start paving project.
I'll make that,
Go ahead, Chris.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Chris. A second? Jeremy, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Move on to the multi-touch tables.
Yes, so seeking also approval using Head Start funds to purchase the We Play Smart multi-touch tables by Hatch. Currently, we use Hatch boards in our Head Start classrooms. They're interactive smart boards that go along with our curriculum and Indiana Foundations. They give children the opportunities to do interactive work in whole group. These We Play Smart multi-touch tables are more individualized or within cohorts during part of our curriculum called the Plan Do Review Time. It allows the students to interact with each other, and it has some technology involved that records those interactions so teachers can go back and see where we're missing some of those gaps. During that time of the curriculum, teachers float around the room to assess children's play, their behavior, just different conversation, language pieces, and this will let us fill in those gaps that we are missing when we can't be at every group at every time.
Kelly, what are the Head Start rules about the dollar amounts you have to go through the board to approve?
So anything over $5,000
Okay.
has to be approved by Board and Policy Council.
Thank you for that reminder. Okay, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the Head Start purchase of multi-touch tables.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dennis. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Resource Center determination.
Thank you. We have Mike here tonight, Mike Cordy, welcome. So really, Administrator, we're seeking your guidance on next steps for the Resource Center building. Of course, any business we do has to be conducted in any decisions in public, and we have a proposal from a local 501c3 for use of that building, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Leslie, and the board for some discussion, and then really we need some direction on where to go with a decision on the request for the proposal to receive that building, and then depending on how that goes, I guess we'll see the next direction for myself and my team,
So we have had a little opportunity to talk about it, and I just want to kind of open it up to the board to, oh, you don't need to step out. We just want to make it clear that
Yes.
Dennis and Chris will not be voting.
And that's due to your connection with
With
this.
Higher Praise, which is a partner
Yes.
with Mike Corning's group. But no, you don't need to step out, and you are also welcome to participate in the discussion if you choose. You don't have to, you can just listen, it's fine. We did have some discussion about this, and I kind of wanted to open it up to board members who had expressed some of their ideas at our meeting previously. So I don't know who might want to speak first. I know, Jeremy, you had some comments, and I don't know about Mark or Ann, but did you want to share any thoughts you had?
At this time, I didn't feel like we had any resources that come aboard that demonstrated enough financial support or resources of their own to sufficiently handle such a large building myself. I've just not seen enough evidence. So my opinion is I'm not leaning towards that as a transfer of ownership. I do think that we could utilize the property down the road for possibly building trades, stuff like that. But at this time, I don't believe we have a good viable person to transfer ownership to.
Others want to speak.
I'll speak. I agree with Jeremy for one thing. I said a year or two ago that I thought the property was worth more to us without a building setting on it than a building setting on it. I think with the noble efforts and interest that it's too much of a challenge. I think there's a lot there that's unknown and a lot that's known that is just too expensive to sign that over. I think I don't know that it can be handled properly. And again, I think maybe with the corporation's interest in keeping the property without a building, and for the sake maybe of the taxpayer's interest, that it will be worth more without a building setting on it than a building setting on it. That's the way I feel.
Adding on to that, I agree with Mark. I think possibly the removal of the building and then holding the property until we deem the next use of it.
I have some serious concerns, and I want to say I'm very, very supportive of what the ministry does. They do a lot of really, really good work. And my concern that I shared with Mark and Jeremy is you have a limited amount of funds, and you do wonderful work here in the community, for the community, with those funds. And if that building could turn into a money pit so quickly because of there are just things seen and things unseen. And I would feel very bad if we turned it over to you and you had to use the funds that you use now for the benefit of the people who really need them in Fayette County to try to keep the building together. It's a terribly tough decision, but that building could turn into a money pit really, really quickly with all the stuff that's going on. And that money has to come from somewhere, and you have a limited amount of money and you do wonderful work with the money that you have, but the new money would have to come from somewhere. And I think it's just too much. Noble cause, but I think it's just trying too much for your organization to handle at this particular time.
I think we had tossed around some numbers of, and I can't remember what Brian had told us. 'Cause the costs that we would have had to incur if we wanted to keep that building open, and
$500,000 stands to get it up to our code that we would have as a public school district would be
because there were foundation issues.
grading, foundation, parking lot.
Right.
You know, and I'll share, this was something that Randy, and you can speak about it, but I picture the length, it's about 3 inches, there's a gap on the third floor on one of the walls that lockers had been there, but there's a gap between the floor and that wall that we didn't know about until Daryl showed that to him today, that it was covered, I guess, at one point. So we don't know for sure, we haven't looked at it structurally, other than, that was just something that he made me aware of today from the third floor aspect.
What year was, I'm sorry.
So I don't know what that would entail there, to just adding more to it. I know it's gonna take a lot of money to fix it, or a lot of volunteer hours to do that. I mean, it would definitely take
And
a
even
lot of
with,
time.
even with all the volunteer hours, you still have to buy raw materials, you know, structural, everything in there. It's pretty costly, even if you have all the free labor you want. The materials to do such is pretty costly in itself.
You know, the roof is a major, major concern down there.
I don't know what year the building was built.
I don't have an accurate year. It was built on as an annex to the old high school. And I don't know for sure the year. I'm trying to think, there's not a lot of history on that.
I think
part
the
of
fire
building.
was in 82 or 3.
Early 80s, yeah. It sat empty for years, that building did. But
Yeah.
the district did try to sell it. I think I shared that in another meeting. I found some old history on that. Grocery store out of Yorktown, a developer was going to buy it and then backed out for some reason. And then it's been purposed as a resource center for the adults since then. There is some changes with our Attorney General now that went into effect with some reporting to the state, and Michelle, our attorney, will have to guide us on that piece, just to put that out there too. Whatever we do with it, to dispose of it from, you know, as a building. It wasn't a school building by itself, but it was used for kids, so she's gonna work with the Attorney General's office to find out what needs to be reported. Regardless of what we do, that'll be something that Michelle will have to work with us on. Just wanted to mention that.
Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend the group for what they're doing. It's wonderful for the community and all, but it just seems like, you know, you rely on volunteers and all. I know you have lots of enthusiasm now and everything, but down the road, you know, in years to come, you know, is it gonna be there? And if somehow, you know, it would vacate or whatever, it's still gonna be considered a school building. You know, everyone's gonna, you know, maybe, not that it would at that time, but if it's still standing. So, you know, I just think that's what's best, you know, just to kind of move forward and, you know, the bare ground aspect.
Would you go as far as saying it's a safety issue for anybody to go in there at this time? Could we go as far as saying that? Would be a safety
That's like I
issue?
said, we saw something today that we were unaware of, so that would be, that's not normal for a thick concrete floor to have a 3-inch gap between the exterior wall. And I don't know why. He showed it to me and I thought, oh my, I thought I had been over that whole building, but Daryl pointed it out to you.
Yeah, Daryl pointed it out today, as well as the fact of wandering through the building. I mean, there was standing water on spots on the gym floor as well as the stage, so it's obvious that there are major roof issues
Oh, that's not
that need to
good.
be,
So many
Would have to be
unknowns
addressed.
right now. That's it, that's the concern, unknowns.
Right.
It's hiding, so.
And I think when Brian presented originally to us, absolutely the safety issue and not having our people in there anymore. And I think one of the the mentions you made, Ann, in the meeting that I thought was really right on was that if the group took this over and with what we were told by Brian, the amount of structural damage or structural repairs needed, that it could be overwhelming, and also just the safety issues. Like, I don't want to see anybody getting hurt. I don't want to see something that seems to be okay later come back and be a huge repair that then requires much further work than was ever thought. And so I think this is the building, you just discovered this one thing. I think once somebody got in there, there would be more things that would probably be uncovered, only because of the problems we've had. So I think this is kind of a, it's labeled on our agenda as a resource center determination. And I've heard a couple of, I think Mark's been the one that said this prior to any groups coming forward, just that he felt that this property was of more value to the school without a building on it. And then I think Jeremy brought up some ideas during a meeting we had about possibly building trades being able to come in and build something. Certainly for a while it would be green space, and I think it would be directing you, Scott, to continue to look at bids for demolition. And
Yeah, I need direction on, we
Yeah.
started talking about this a year and a half ago. And, at this point, it is being vandalized. There's upkeep. We're paying about $500 a month to city utilities for that building to sit there just for that, with the water and sewage and stormwater. So it's a cost to us and a liability for me, and so I just need direction from the board on, Mr. Horning's proposal, and then also what's the next step for us? What would you direct me to do and our
Well,
team? So there's really two steps to this,
Right.
just depending on how your first decision is.
so I think the way we can word this motion is, I'd like to hear a motion on how to proceed with the building, whether we want to consider selling it, whether we're open to selling it, or whether we are going to seek other alternatives. Is that appropriate? If we're selling it,
Or transferring it.
transferring,
to a 501c3.
transferring ownership.
That's the
or-
first decision.
Right, the first decision is transferring ownership or seeking another way to deal with the building. So, do I hear a motion to transfer ownership? Do I see a motion to seek other alternatives on how to manage the building and the property? And if so, is someone going to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Mark. Do I hear a second?
Second that.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any discussion?
So clarify what that motion is.
Second motion
What's the
is-
direction for us then?
Seeking other
Make it on record.
alternatives as to how to deal with the land, which I guess, do we need to have a discussion about that, demolition?
If we're going to seek demolition bids, that's what the
That's
motion
what-
would need to be,
okay.
really, to give us permission to advertise.
Do we need to first decide that we are not gonna transfer the sale?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, that died for lack of a motion.
That died for
thank
me.
you. Okay,
So
so
it
the
didn't get a
next,
motion, so that needs to be reported. That there
So-
was no motion made for transferring the building.
so the alternative means that we're seeking are now to get demolition bids.
Yes.
I'll make that motion that
Make that
we
motion.
give the administration permission to seek demolition bids on the resource center.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in-
Let me maybe clarify a little bit there. What I really need to proceed is permission from the board to post notice that we are soliciting bids for demolition of the building. Because we're gonna have to advertise it twice and then have a formal bid on that. So that's really what we need to go through legally to seek permission to demo the building.
Okay, so the motion is to give permission to advertise bids for demolition of the
Correct.
building.
And then we'll get those. We won't do anything that Then we'll bring the bids back to the board for further action, but this just allows us to seek those bids.
I thought that's what I did.
Yes,
That's okay.
I just want to make sure Cindy had the right language.
Oh, we'll do it we'll clarify a little better this time.
Clarify.
And the only, any further discussion? I want to thank Mike and your group. You know, your wife was terribly nervous and she did a great job. And we do believe you're doing wonderful work. We just are really concerned about this building and we just don't feel it's the right time to do that.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
And
Thanks
any
for
oth-
all you do.
Any other, oh, okay. So, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay.
Is that sufficient? Or you need Randy? Yep. Okay.
We will get it advertised right away.
Okay, now we're on to the return to school plan for 21-22. Scott?
Thank you. So, this time last year, we were talking about this, and we're back. So, it's like Groundhog Day, if you've seen that movie, I think. But we are in a much better place than we were a year ago at this time. And we have a plan that we will post on our website pending your approval. And so really there's three parts to what I'm going to ask for your permission. I want to go over some of the highlights of this plan. Our plan right now, you know, when we ran this by our health department, and Dr. White and Matt Shirk both gave us their approval on it, is when we look at the spread, when it's low to moderate, which we are still blue, we're remaining as blue, but our vaccination rate I know is around 30%, give or take. So, and as of right now, children under the age of 12 are not eligible for the vaccination. So we have a large population of kids who, whether their parents choose to do that or not, they are not eligible for that. So we'll have a large population, but our numbers are good. Dr. White updated me on where we're at for this week. We're still blue with very low numbers, which is very good. We did not see any significant outbreaks in our schools last year. As you recall, we did have to adjust scheduling and move to a hybrid schedule at the high school more than once. We may reach a point where numbers would go up, we may have to do that again, but at this point, things look much better than they did last year. So our plan is school status will be in-person learning, regular daily schedule for all students, unless it's something that's dictated through a medical advice through their individual education plan, their IEP, and that would be working with the building principal and Mrs. Corsaro's office. We will ask people to self-screen daily, as we have been doing, to monitor for symptoms. Masks will be optional in all Fayette County school buildings. We would follow the CDC and Health Department recommendations. If you haven't been vaccinated, wear a mask, but they will not be mandatory. Physical distancing, we will still work on that. You know, classrooms, we'll still ask our principals to work with their staff to try to spread desks out as much as possible. But, you know, we know that there will be instances where kids will be sitting less than 3 feet, but the goal will be to try to keep kids at that same target that they were last year. Cafeteria, we're going to move back to normal seating. We'll still, you know, keep some, I know for the younger kids, they're still gonna try to keep the kids spaced through the lines. We learned a lot in this last school year, and we learned a lot of things that help keep our kids safe, not just with the pandemic, but also with flu season. So there are a lot of good practices we want to continue with the hand sanitizing, hand washing, stressing that with our kids, keeping all the sanitizer stations located throughout all of our buildings and keeping those fully stocked. Cleaning, we'll still focus on using the extra cleaner sanitizers on our buses in our buildings that we did. And I think, you know, I commend our custodians, and a lot of people don't know how much extra our teachers did between classes. You know, right now we're going to try to move back on that piece a little bit with the teachers, but make sure that we're really hitting those high contact points during the day. Our custodians, wiping door handles, the bottle filling stations, water fountains, anything that's a high touch, high frequency touching area. We'll do the same, if you recall, we moved to that contact tracing and quarantine piece, and then the state followed suit shortly after, which we were trailblazers, or I don't know what, but, we will contact the family when there's a close contact, and for any positive cases, we will notify the health department as required as well. On the school buses, this was a change from what I originally shared with you, my thinking. The CDC and the Indiana State Department of Health have both mandated that masks should be worn on buses, public transportation. I don't know sure when that might end, but in talking with Michelle Cooper, our attorney, she said that all Indiana school districts should follow this mandate. So even though the governor said it's a local decision, that is what I was basing it on. She said this really trumps that for this piece. So we will have masks on the bus, but we will have that in our plan that masks should be worn on school buses. So extracurricular activities, masks will be optional. I want to go over a few highlights. There's several pages to this plan. We will, of course, monitor and track any positive cases, as I said, and notify our local health department, and we'll watch those numbers. If we start seeing a spread, we may have to look at some alternatives. I'm hoping we don't have to do that.
But you're saying no quarantining? That will be self-determined?
That will be self-determined, yes. That's similar to what we followed last year.
Spring.
It's really contact.
Towards the end of the year.
Toward the end, right, as things moved on. There were a few other things. Visitors, we are going to allow volunteers back into the buildings again. We would ask that if they have not been vaccinated, we encourage them to wear masks as well and just self-screen before they come in. To start the year, we are not going to allow lunch guests though at this time. So that will be a piece looking at our food service plan. We are going to reinstate field trips for students this year. Those are an important part of student learning. We will watch the counties and the locations where the kids will be going. If there is an outbreak or they're under some sort of an emergency, that may limit their ability to travel. But our hope is kids can go on the field trips again and participate in those activities. That's our plan. Water bottle filling stations, we have on back order more of the water bottle filling stations. It's just like last year, but we have equipped all of our buildings with those. We're wanting to replace out all of our water fountains with those. So we'll have water fountains and the filling stations together.
How far are we from doing that, replacing the? I mean, you said every school's got a
Every
water
school we've
filling
installed
station.
at least 2.
Okay.
In the elementaries, I believe. The high school has more, and middle school. But our goal is to replace all those. Most of our water fountains are pretty old. Is to replace those with the bottle filler and the fountain, the combo.
So every school already has 2?
Yeah, at least.
Good.
But we were gonna replace all using some of the ESSER funds for the safety piece. We just don't have them in yet.
We put a purchase order in probably 2 or 3 months ago, and then
They're on the ship from
Yeah, we
China
know.
or somewhere, and
They're back ordered along with everything
They are.
else.
The only thing I have concern about that is there are some children that financially may not have their own water bottles and such.
we have those.
We
We
provide
have-
them.
Okay, okay,
And we still have water bottles, and, yeah, we provided those as well.
okay, thank you.
So we're gonna have masks and water bottles
We will have
available
masks
for
and water
anybody
bottles
that wants
available.
them.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeremy.
We have a lot of masks left, don't we? So, social distancing, we will still encourage people to socially distance, try to keep our family members on the buses in the same seats. And then, our transportation department did a great job with disinfecting those buses and spraying them down every day, so we'll continue with those practices. Athletics, extracurriculars, we plan to move forward as normal. We will ask kids to use their own water bottles. The days of the, what are those called, the hoses where everybody drinks from them, we're not going to be using those. But, kids will have their own water bottles, that's one of the pieces. And they'll follow, if the IHSAA or if the state has other mandates, we'll follow those certainly. But I look forward to hopefully a normal sports season for all of our kids, a normal band and choir. Hopefully they can compete again in person. That's my hope, and we'll support those efforts. And I think that's really, I think the key pieces for you would be back to regular in-person learning. I believe that's when kids learn best, is when they're working with and under a teacher and working with other students. And then no mask mandate in the buildings. However, the buses are a federal and state requirement. Until that changes, we'll follow.
I think that's important for people, because that's not gonna be, quite frankly, wearing the mask on the bus is not gonna be popular in Fayette County at all, particularly with the little ones who love to play with them and.
However, we did it last year.
Yeah, they did, and they kind of got used to it probably, but I don't think parents are gonna have to buy any more masks, because I'm sure just stick it in your backpack and take it off when you get to school. At least you get that contact with the kid.
I've looked at about 15 other districts across the state with what they're proposing, and there are a lot of districts still requiring the 12 and under kids to wear masks all day, every day. And we are not doing that, we're not recommending. However, I do want our parents and guardians and staff to know, and students, that anyone may wear a mask, and that is certainly any person's choice to wear their mask all day at school or on any of our properties. And, so we will have masks in the offices and available on our buses as needed. So there are really three parts to this, what I need your approval. It's similar to what we did last year. First, if you approve of the plan, that's part of the motion as submitted. And then giving me approval to adjust the plan as needed rather than wait until the next board meeting. This will be fluid. Dr. White may call and say, hey, you know what, we're seeing an uptick here, or we're seeing this situation. I may need to tweak this, and I'm asking for your permission, not only of the plan, but giving us approval to tweak the plan as needed based on governor's orders or the health department's orders. And then also permission to adjust the school schedule if we need to move to a hybrid or some other model, so we don't have to call a special meeting. You did this for me last year, if you recall. I just want it recorded in the minutes that you're approving the plan, allowing us to tweak the plan as needed, and then permission to adjust our schedule if needed during the school year. So it can be a one motion piece, but just
Right.
capturing those three things. And entertain questions now as well.
What's Dr. White's prognosis on Fayette County at this particular point in time?
His last comment to me was things are going really well. Keep moving along. That was yesterday, so.
Okay. So
we're
as the
staying
chief health officer, he does not see significant risk factors for the kids, for the adults, for about anybody.
Well, I'm not gonna put him on the spot and put those words into his mouth. He approved that plan. I have it in writing from him and from Matt that they support the plan as submitted. So that to me was the biggest endorsement. So
Because they know exactly what's going on.
it could change.
Well, we know the Delta virus is out there. We know that all of our kids under 12 have not been vaccinated. So obviously, it's going to be a fluid situation when school starts. So certainly be able to change on the run, on the fly.
Right.
And we got pretty good at that.
We did.
Yeah, we learned a lot last year.
And we learned a lot of good things that we'll keep doing after this is done, as far as keeping our kids safe and the sanitizing, hand washing, and just stressing out even more with their kids and taking some of the extra sanitizing and cleaning precautions.
I did want to mention something that you didn't, there's other stuff in here that we didn't specifically mention, but the attendance at policies, we were pretty lenient with students last year. That is going back to the regular way we handle.
We haven't received any specific guidance from the
Guidance on that.
state, but I would just, from what I've read, they will probably go back to normal attendance, but if there are COVID-related illnesses and they have documentation for that, then they will probably be excused. So I see it as maybe a little bit of a transition of maybe not as flexible as it was this year, but not what we were prior to COVID either. Just to kind of transition slowly back into what we expected for attendance, but we won't have as many kids that'll be able to, because we're not going to do the quarantine or
Right.
the contact tracing. That was a lot of our kids.
Right.
Some kids got it two,
Three
three times, and so their attendance was
And we also don't have the, what was it, was federal that allowed for the federal law, well, I forget what it was called, that federal Families First
Families, yes.
that allowed
Yes,
staff
staff and
to
things.
have more absences if needed based on COVID.
Right, that's not in place.
That's not in place anymore, so I
With the
think we need to be.
availability, and that's in the plan, I didn't go
Right,
through all
right.
that, but I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, that's-
With the
that's good.
availability of the vaccine, you know, our staff, anyone who wanted that vaccine should have had it. And so if they are gonna be out or contract, you know, if they do get it and they didn't have a vaccine, they'll use their
Right.
benefit days. There is no federal guidance for that or
Right,
days for
right.
that this year.
And I think, you know, public needs to know, part of, I mean, the government jumped in big ways to help all of us out last year, and those things have been pulled back, so that's where we
But
are.
it's still fluid.
Yes.
And
it is
everybody in
fluid.
Fayette County needs to know that we expect the kids to be in the classroom, and we think that's the best place for them to get the best education, and that the online option is not there this year.
Yeah. So we're seeking a motion to approve the school plan related to COVID for 21-22 school year, along with approving this would be an approval to adjust the plan as needed and permission to also adjust the school schedule as needed. So I'd like to seek a motion for that. Thank you, Jeremy. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Onward and upward to a good school year. Okay, on to a discussion item, the new board policy 1.17.1, the electronic participation by board meetings. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, and I chose that board policy number because 1.17, board policy 1.17 talks about the meeting structure for board members. So it's an add-on to that, so that's why there's .1, if anyone would wonder. That's where I told Cindy to place it. I think it fits there. But this is another gift of COVID that we have not had in place and districts haven't had in place, but because of this, you know, and just informally talking with the board members about this as an option that the Indiana School Board Association shared, there was a change in Indiana code where meetings for school boards and other publicly elected boards may have membership participation electronically. We are, when there is no declared local or state public emergency, and that's the case for Indiana right now. That was removed at the end of June by the governor, so we are now operating, I guess, normal. However, there is an opportunity for us to create policy that would allow a set number of board members to attend electronically if there is a situation where that person cannot attend due to an emergency or travel out of town, that you can still participate and Zoom in or, you know, join the meeting. So that's what this policy outlines. Some pieces I wanted to share with this under the first section. Under number 1 and 2, it allows all participating members of the school board to simultaneously communicate with each other. That's one of the requirements of this, that you have to all be able to communicate through electronic means. And other than an executive session, allows the public to simultaneously attend and observe the meeting. That's important because we have to have accessibility by the public to be able to attend electronically and watch it. So we have a great partnership with TV3, and these meetings are streamed. And that's the other piece. So if board members are doing it, then the public needs that same opportunity. So that this policy outlines that. The majority of the board members must physically be present at the meeting. And so in some just informal discussions with our policy committee, you know, what I proposed was that no more than 2 members may participate by electronic means. That's my proposal. We could add another, but I thought 2 was, we may never have
still have a
to,
quorum
but it's
here.
reasonable. And then for any board member who cannot attend in person and needs to attend electronically, must notify the board president and or myself or Cindy with 2 days prior to. so we can make arrangement. That's another piece that we had a little bit of an option with how many days. I recommend 2. A board member may not participate in more than 50% of the school board meetings in a calendar year by electronic means unless that board member's participation is due to military service, illness or other medical condition, death of a relative, or an emergency involving actual or threatened injury to persons or property. Those are very specific in Indiana code, what the allowable reasons are, so I included those. On the next page of the policy, it talks about a board member may attend 2 consecutive school board meetings electronically, but must attend the next one in person. So you cannot attend more than 2 in a row through electronic means without attending, unless it falls into one of those same 4 reasons that I just mentioned. Another important part of this is with electronic participation, no board member may participate by electronic means in a school board meeting in which the board will take final action to adopt a budget, make a reduction in personnel, initiate a referendum, impose or increase a fee, exercise the school board's power of eminent domain, or establish, raise, or renew a tax. So those are very specific in Indiana Code 2. So if there would be a situation where a board member couldn't be here for that reason, they would just not be a part of the meeting if they couldn't be here in person. Couple other important parts of this is the board member under the voting, they may vote as long as before the board only if the board member can be seen and heard. So I know we called in on one board member on the phone. This pretty much dictates that it would have to be one where we would have visual, representation too. So it would have to be through a Zoom or some type of procedure like that. And then also Leslie, as board president right now, would have to take all votes by roll call vote rather than just raising your hand. So she would have to go through and do a roll call for each vote. So that's the other piece that must be in the policy. And then the minutes, it gives some guidelines on what those must contain. It must identify who was physically present, who was participating by electronic means, and who was absent. And then it must identify the electronic means of communication by which the board members participated, and to ensure that the members of the public had that same electronic means. So pretty specific on what's required, but this was the first reading. Any comments, thoughts right now? We will, by Indiana statute, have a second reading next month, and then I will ask for a discussion and then approval. Put it in place. So any thoughts, comments right now?
Looks good.
I agree with it as well. Do we have in place any kind of plans or thoughts or equipment or whatever, maybe for Zoom or anything else that we would need on this?
We do have some cameras that we can have in place and we're changing our screens here, so we'll hopefully be able to do a live feed in with that. One of the reasons Peter made these changes, so TV3 can tap into what we're doing here. So yeah, we will have a means in place where we can do that.
I personally can relate to some things coming up or travel for.
So if you're on electronic, your face will probably be up on the screen in the corner or something. So, yeah.
Not the whole screen?
Well, for you, yes, but I don't think we want Dennis's whole face up there, do we? Chris told me to say
picking on
that,
you.
so.
I do have one. With the 2-day notice, I understand there may be circumstances where that would be impossible. Is there something in place to be able to help with that as well? Because if something happens the day before the meeting, that's less than that 2-day.
Or the day of.
Or the day of.
Somebody was in a
If
car
there's-
accident or
So
something.
there's circumstances that could happen.
Or you just miss a meeting.
Yeah. And, I think we could, I can make a note there to talk about that. You could either miss the meeting as in normal past years.
True.
Or in that next section on the bottom of page 1 where it gives the reasons to miss more than 50%, maybe we add a something where.
And I was
if it's
just
an
wondering, because I
emergency.
know, and I do agree with the 2-day, but, you just never know when things
That's
happen,
right.
especially, the way things are going, so.
Yeah, that's a good.
I'll run that by Michelle.
Yeah, good point.
No, I personally, really appreciate this because it really came in handy for me
Right.
this year.
Right.
I have no problem with the 2 because both of mine, I was able to do it more than the 2-day,
Yeah.
That was
Notice.
under because I could see it coming.
But we
When I
didn't
was
get to
stuck in
see-
Evansville.
We didn't get to see your face, Mr.
No,
Allen.
Well, no, that will be corrected because my
We only-
computer is Zoom.
We only
With-
heard you.
Computer is Zoom.
No, Leslie, in all seriousness, I would hope that no board member now or in the future would take advantage of this.
Well, that's what.
Right,
And-
I don't
Yeah,
think so.
and I would hope that we would never be irritated by a roll call, because there's only 7 people. You know, it takes no time, so I think the plan's great.
Yeah.
And up to
I like
6,
the
that's
plan.
pretty generous.
Right, I
Per
like
year,
the
that's
plan.
very-
I always said there's some silver linings to COVID that we've discovered how much we can do electronically, and this was one of them.
There is.
Keep learning.
And I think what Mark shared too, I just, not to belabor the meeting, but there's nothing like being here and being present.
Yes.
Right.
And that's what I say with,
preferred.
as a teacher,
Same as having kids at school.
it's the same with
Well,
kids in
absolutely,
school.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like having the kids in the
Yes.
classroom, because the dynamic
It's different.
is totally different.
There's so many things you miss when you're not a part of the meeting if you're watching. I sat through one today for the insurance trust board, and it's just different because you're missing a lot of the
Yeah.
Yeah.
other pieces, so. All right, I'll
right.
check on that and
Okay.
and let you know what language we can add to that. Thanks.
I'm not, I really appreciate Cindy taking the time to educate us and get us into this new board docs, hook, line, and sinker. I just don't know how to read the public comments guidelines. I usually read that whole spiel.
I'm sorry.
That's all right, but public
Persons
comment,
wishing to make the
There you
board
go.
aware of suggestions, ideas, or comments to address the board at this time. Comments involving personnel or students must be discussed in private.
thank you, because I haven't gotten that memorized yet. It's not like things, prayers people
Yeah.
memorize.
Yeah, I do a little card.
Yeah, I can get a little card, that's great. And we have none, so now we'll move on to superintendent discussion group report. Principal director report. Director of operations.
Two things, you have a fund report in front of you, the funds continue to be very healthy and very strong. I don't know if there's any questions or comments on that. Then the other item that I included, just for your information, starting at our next board meeting is our normal process as kind of dictated by law on the budget process. So if you look at what I gave you, the blue items require board action, which the only two that require board action is next month I will be requesting permission to advertise the budget. And then in October's board meeting, I'll be requesting approval of the budget. But in the interim of that, there will be the advertisements for the budget, as well as we'll have a budget hearing at the September board meeting. So pretty much August, September, October, there will be some item there in regards to the budget for 2022.
Great, thank you for that. It's nice to have the timelines. Assistant superintendent report.
Just a couple of things. First of all, just a reminder that the new teacher academy will be July 27th and 28th. And I know Cindy sent out an email to all of you inviting you to lunch on the 27th at noon. It's just a very informal meet and greet, but we'll have all of the new teachers to Fayette County at that.
And that's
lunch.
here, or no?
It's gonna be at the
Spartan
Spartan
Learning
Learning Center.
Spartan Learning
Okay, yes. And then I also wanted to just let you know, at last month's meeting, we approved the partnership with EES, and they are already ready to go, and they will be meeting with all of our math departments the end of July. And so once they meet with them, I'll try to keep you guys updated, because I know it's a substantial amount of money, but I think it's really a great thing for kids and staff. So just wanted to let you know that they're already hit the road running, and they're meeting with all of our departments at the end of July. That's all I have.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Friday is our board retreat. It's, for the public, it's an executive session. It's training with our board attorney, Michelle Cooper, and that, if the carpet's in the hallways, it will be up at the Spartan Learning Center, which is the old Magic Moments building, 9 o'clock. So just one final reminder on that. Michelle's always really good. You'll enjoy her, and she's got a lot of really good topics pertinent to
It's not
school law.
until 1:30, right?
That's the
Yeah,
estimate,
9
maybe
to
a little
1:30.
earlier, but I don't see it lasting longer than that. And so then registration's coming up 29th and 30th, and school begins in
Hold on,
3 weeks.
you told us in the recent correspondence, the teacher day that we,
August 5th.
Off in the 10.
August 5th.
August
Right, and
5th.
is that in the
It's a
auditorium?
Thursday.
It'll be Thursday, yes, in the auditorium at CHS. And it'd be 1:30 or 2. We're still working on, we're gonna have a guest speaker, so we're finalizing that time. But plan on 1:30 to be safe if you can attend.
Thursday, August
That's
5th.
for all teachers.
Yeah, all of our teachers.
It's a return to
administrators.
school.
It's a
Yeah.
return to school thing.
Program,
I see.
Which-
takes place every year, and
You never know what we might do in there.
Uh,
You know, what crazy ideas the superintendent
who's gonna be
has.
dancing, what kind of team
But-
events you're gonna have.
But at least it is in the afternoon, after the teachers have been able to
Right.
be in their classrooms all morning, instead
Right.
of sitting there from 8 o'clock until 10:30 going, when is this going to be over? We need to be in our rooms working. So it's,
And you loved it.
oh, I did not. Put it at the end of the day, that was super.
We are,
That was
that's all I
super.
have.
Okay, for the good of the cause, I wanted to give a shout out to our IT director, Terry Miller. We are all thinking about you, Terry. We wish you a speedy recovery. And our IT department is handling things, I'm sure.
They're doing a
So
great job.
they're doing a great job in his absence, and we just want to get him back as soon as we can.
Yep.
So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know if anybody has anything.
I'd like to give a shout out to the CHS Spartanettes who just finished their camp in National Dance Association camp at Ball State. They came away with a lot of stuff. I can't remember it all. I was the designated chaperone on the bus back from Ball State. But I think the most significant thing that they won, they asked the campers, and there were schools from all over Indiana, a lot from around the Lafayette area, and they took a poll of the campers, and they said, if you couldn't be on your team, whose team would you like to be on? Connersville won.
Oh, wow.
They won. They won some technical awards, but to my mind, that showed that they made an impression on the floor, off the floor, in the dorm, in the food court setting, and the other girls that were there from all over the state thought it would be really cool to be a Spartanette from Connersville High School. And
That's pretty
that
cool.
was just really cool.
Yes.
We have open enrollment, so.
Yeah.
They can call.
I felt like there were a couple parents from around Lafayette who were not happy with the Tippecanoe school system, and I said, come on down.
Anything else from anybody? I'm looking your way.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Dennis is our second. All those in favor signify by raising your hand.